Good morning, everybody. This is Roger Thunder. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the Desert Shaman channel. It's been a while since I did a video, I know, probably a month or more. And followers of my channel know that I do this kind of thing once in a while. I just take off and get sidetracked or need a period of, let's say, reflection, that type thing. Or maybe I'm just dealing with circumstances in my life. Anyway, my video today is our shamans bad guys. Our spiritual masters bad guys. Our medicine men bad guys. And when I say bad guys, I mean in the form of how other people view them, or how other people that come into contact with them and go through certain experiences might view them. You can't define rules, number one, to a shaman or to a spiritual master or anybody. There are no rules. Let's get that straight right from the very beginning. Because rules reside in duality, the third dimension, good and evil, dark and light. Man, I've been over this so many times, but I think it's time to touch on it again. Some people perceive that they want to come in contact with a medicine man or a shaman or whatever, and they think that when they do this, that all of a sudden it's going to open all kinds of doors that are wonderful or nice or feel good or whatever. Or they may be attracted to your persona on other levels, or the person who they seem to think that in their mind you are. Got to watch out for projection too. So in answer to the bad guy thing, yes, shamans sometimes appear to be bad guys. Sometimes they appear to be harsh. Sometimes they appear to be mean. Sometimes they appear to be gentle, compassionate, loving, and kind. Well, if the truth of the matter is known, they are that. They do have compassion. They do come from the heart space. But anybody that comes into contact with them, let's say, for instance, let's take, for example, as far as harsh treatment goes, let's take a Zen master who has students. And these students actually have to jump through hoops to get to the Zen master, to be accepted in the first place. They have to jump through hoops. They have to sometimes beg any master, whether it's martial arts or spiritual, or which can be one and the same. Normally, a master will actually look at a person and go, well, are they really worthy of my attention? Are they really worthy of receiving what I have to offer? Can they handle what I have to offer? And so if they are accepted, sometimes there's, like with the Zen master, you'll have a meditation class, or you'll have a class where you're sitting in a room, any kind of room that the master chooses. And that room can be not just a physical room, it can be a room around them, an energy field, an energy field. And they may come there for a lesson. Let's say it's meditation, or let's say it's Tai Chi, or let's say it's clearing or doing a deep dive into the shadow self, or any number of things. And the master or the shaman will look at them, and let's say you have a meditation class and there's a student that's sitting in the class and they're not exactly paying attention, let's say. They're not paying attention to the spiritual ritual that is involved in the learning process, according to the master or according to the shaman. And so sometimes Zen masters, if they saw, let's say, a person talking to another person or whispering, or let's say just lack of attention, they would go over to the wall and reach out their arm and get a hold of their bow or their bouquin, their wooden sword, or maybe it's a staff, and they would go over to that student and they would whack him on the back or somewhere, and hard. It hurts. It hurt. Okay. And so that was for the students' good. That was to wake them up. That was to call to their attention that they were deviating from the course. They were deviating from the path. They were deviating from the discipline or whatever. And if they were really there to learn, there is no deviation allowed. There is no straying from the path. There is none of that. And so the Zen master whacked him, and it hurt, and they woke up and they went, "Oh, thank you." They knew. They knew when they were getting out of line. So this can happen in all kinds of levels. When you walk through a shaman's door or through the archway to his temple, or let's say a Zen master, this applies to anybody that is a medicine man. You might be surprised, okay, at the events that start happening in your life that come from that source, actually, the connection. Now, there's been books written about spiritual warriors or warriors of the light, and one of them is that comes to mind is Paulo Coelho, which I have a copy of his book here. What's it entitled? The Warrior of Light. The Warrior of Light by Paulo Coelho. Paulo Coelho. No, I haven't, and he speaks in there about all this stuff. He's a true kindred soul to me. And he speaks about how other people view warriors of light as madmen, as hypocritical, as saying one thing and doing another, as just an all-around person that can't be understood or is misunderstood. But the warrior of light continues on in his path because he knows what he's doing, but they don't know. And sometimes a warrior of light or a shaman don't even know what they're doing. They're being directed on high. There's lessons for them as well. And I touch on that on this book. I touch on the same thing about what it means to be a warrior. Listen to the Wind Speak from the Heart is the name of the book. And I touched on what it means to be a spiritual warrior, and I touched on what it means to be a warrior of light. I've touched on what it means to be a Taoist warrior. And I say the same things and have written the same things in my book that Paulo Coelho wrote in his book, and others too. Other writers, other shamans, other mystics, they write the same thing. Shamans, spiritual men, can be seen as manipulators. Now, there's another thing I wanted to touch on, because certain things arise in people's lives when they come into contact with let's say, a shaman or a spiritual man or woman. And all of a sudden they might think of the word manipulation, or they might think of the word I don't know, I think I'll stick with the manipulation word. So let's look at that word a minute. Let's look at the word manipulation. Now, if you look in the dictionary, you're going to get bad connotations on that word. You're going to get, and see, that's how society is. They only want to give you one side of the picture in a way. They only want to show you or teach you or brainwash you into thinking that a thing like a word can only mean one thing. Anyway, I digress. But so manipulation in the dictionary is defined, although some don't. They put an alternative meaning in there as something bad. It's something bad. You're manipulating a person. You're doing this. You're doing that. Well, let's take the word manipulation in another context. Let's look at the word manipulation in the form of, let's say, a chiropractor. Somebody that you go into and they set your bones, okay, and they adjust. Some of them might be so far advanced as to adjust the fascia in your body, okay? The tendons and all kinds of things, the skull and the sutures on the skull and whatever. This, in the layman's terms, is called manipulation, chiropractic manipulation. And when this manipulation occurs, it's because that master of that healing modality, or that teacher, or that the person that has gone into that deeply enough, knows that when they're manipulating, they're setting things straight, they're readjusting, they're aligning, they're getting your body in tune. So based on that concept, that's a metaphor, but based on that concept, when you approach a medicine man or a shaman or anything like that, they will manipulate you. And if they don't manipulate you, their higher spiritual self, or their spirit guides, or their connections on spirit levels. See, shamans use spirits. They use spirits, and the spirits are all around them, and the spirits sometimes on a healing level know what to do exactly, all right? And so it really isn't the persona of the person or the shaman that sometimes manipulates. It's actually the higher levels, or the higher spiritual levels, or the higher spiritual realm. A healing takes place through manipulation, and it's about intent. Manipulation is about intent then, isn't it? So if your intention is to facilitate a manipulation on, let's say, a student or a disciple or something like that, the intent is always for an awakening. The intent is always for an alignment, just like the chiropractor. The intent is always to set things straight. And the person may have their mind blown when it appears on a physical level, to try to steer them either what might seem towards a destructive thing or, oh, let's say an event like the Tower card in the Tarot. Incidentally, I'm designing a new Tarot deck called the Yantra Tarot. I've spoken about that before. I'll touch on that later. But they might be steered to a certain event like the Tower card, an explosion of deep dark energy that has been repressed for a long time. A repression of energy and a repression of the shadow self. And that shadow self will erupt like a volcano, and then you got something like you see in the Tower card, the Tarot card, the Tower, where lightning is striking the top of the tower, and there's a crown in the Rider-Waite deck. There's a crown on the top of the tower, and it's blown off. It's blown off, and 2 people are falling from the tower. Well, the crown represents the crown chakra, and the lightning bolt represents exactly what I was talking about with the Zen master whacking somebody over the head and waking him up. Sometimes something like that from a master will even enlighten the person if they're open to it. It will even enlighten the person. The crown chakra is blown off, and the crown chakra is the energy center, which the Hopis say is, when it's open, that's how you talk to God, that's how you talk to the Creator, that's how you talk to Great Spirit. So, what's happening here when you ask for a teaching, or and I do that even in my videos. I do that in my videos. I use any modality I can with tone of voice, change of pace, feeling like there's a relaxed tone and vibe in my being. And then all of a sudden getting angry and all of a sudden say, "You dumb motherfuckers. You dumb shits, wake up." See, so that's what I'm talking about here. I do that occasionally in my videos. Everything is a manipulation. Everything is and the intent is good. See, that's the important thing, is what is your intention? What is your intention? Other people are actually jealous of shamans. There's all kinds of things that go on with shamans. Sometimes a shaman will take on a student and they might try to test him. And they might not even know they're trying to test him. Maybe that's something in their psyche that says, well, I'm giving myself to this shaman, and I'm giving myself over for learning purposes or enlightenment purposes, and I'm here to enlighten. But then something back deep in their psyche says, yeah, but do you trust this guy? Or how do you test to see if he's really real or whatever? And then they'll pull some bullshit on you that tries to knock you off center, okay, or bring you down a certain frequency, bring you down to a drama frequency, let's say, for instance. They will all of a sudden, through their healing process and drama and the shit that they go through, will all of a sudden try to draw you into that. And usually it's drawn in, they revert back to conditioning, and they revert back to rules and regulations, and they revert back to worries and fears, and they revert back to some old self or some ingrained persona And sometimes they don't even know they're doing it, granted. Because again, on a subconscious level, there's a fear of putting trust in somebody for a healing. So shamans have to deal with people that are knocked off center, or that are go through their drama, or go through this, or go through that. And shamans are imperfect. They're not perfect. And shamans have to, all of a sudden, it's, in a way, it's a truing of the shaman's sword as well, because then they have to sharpen it and sharpen it more to cut through the Gordian knot, to cut through the muscle, to get to the marrow of the bone of the problem. And it's all a learning process. And the shaman not only learns, but the student learns, okay? And the student learns on one level, on a more mundane, lower level, relating to life and all that shit. But the shaman has already transcended that. He's already transcended that. And on the mundane level, or on this lower frequency, he's on a higher frequency. But he still learns. And he learns from that higher frequency, and it even takes him up a little higher. Okay? But he's already learned the lessons that the student is trying to learn. So it's a facilitation. It's a facilitation. Some people have total misconceptions, okay? Like, let's say you're on the reservation and you go to see a medicine man, or a spiritual man, or a holy man, or a Wakan man, Wakan. And they bring an offering. Let's say they bring an offering. And it's a gift. Okay, it's a gift. And that is known amongst circles of the medicine men to accept gifts just because when you give a gift to a medicine man, it has to be sincere, and it has to be given for the reason of respect. It's given out of honor and respect for the medicine man. Respect of his abilities, respect of his nature, respect of his healing abilities. So it's a heartfelt offering. It's a heartfelt offering. And when they give this offering, they go in and have a consultation with the medicine man, or it may be a group of people that have a consultation, or it could be a ritualistic thing. And they might assemble in a room, or they might assemble in a sweat lodge, or they might assemble in the mountains, anywhere. But there have been stories about things happening. When a person goes to a medicine man, there's been stories of a group of people will be in a room. The room will all be shut down. The medicine man will shut down the room, close off all the windows, make it pitch dark, go into chanting, go into ritual, and all of a sudden the friggin' roof of the building is blown off, opens wide open to the stars, okay, and the moon and the cosmos, and all kinds of spirits and entities and snakes and dragons and demons will enter into the room and twine around and curl around, and this is all documented, and then they will leave the room, okay, And all of a sudden, you're back in the room and the roof's on, but the roof actually did go off, and these things actually did happen. But then all of a sudden, somehow, it's all back in place, and the participants in the room went through some kind of healing with it. And it was mind-blowing. It was scary. It was, but at the same time, it can be fascinating, and it can be hypnotizing, and it can create all kinds of an effect on that person or persons that were involved in that ritual. What makes you think that when you hook up with somebody that's on a very high spiritual level, you're not going to go through the same shit on different levels? Things could happen in your life that wake you up, or they don't wake you up. You can go either way. You can go either way with that. Sometimes it'll wake you up. You'll regain your senses and go and realize that there's no such thing as coinkydink or coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. If you come into contact with somebody that's on a high spirit and then you start going through lessons in life, is that coincidence? Is that a coincidence? Well, you can chalk it up to that if you wish. Well, the other thing you can come up with it was, oh man, wow, my life was going on pretty good until I came into contact with this person, and or at least you thought your life was going good, which it really wasn't. But it seems like all kinds of things are happening to me now. All kinds of events are happening. Gotta have a drink here. And man, I gotta blame somebody. So I guess I should blame the person that I came into contact with. Let's have more fear. That'll work. So don't have preconceived notions about healings and about medicine man and about any of that stuff. That it's all got to be, roses and boxes of chocolates, and it's all a very tasty thing and fragrant thing. It's not. Now, depending on where you're at, depending on where you're coming from, it can be easy. If you, let's say you're a student, okay, and you start going through stuff, it can be easy or it can be hard. You can make things easy on yourself, or you can make things hard on yourself. You can immediately see what lesson is at play, or what healing is at play. And not fight it or not get egotistical about it, or I don't deserve this and what's happening here, and all this good shit, okay? Now, as you're going through this, as you are experiencing all this stuff, the shaman or the Zen master or the healer might just be sitting there looking at you. Because they already know. They already know things you don't. They already know how things are going to play out. They already know about drama. They already know about how people drum up drama in their lives and how they try to suck other people into it. Misery loves company. You ever hear that term? Misery loves company. In any time, in any situation where you have a healing going on from a certain person, from a shaman, the first thing you want to do is reach out and say, help me, I'm going through all kinds of shit here, and the shaman already knows you're going through shit, and just looks at it like, learn the lesson. What is the higher principle in the lesson? What is the higher principle? What's the higher principle at play? And we're not talking about rules. We're not talking about, oh, that ain't fair or this ain't fair. We're not talking about laws, government laws or local laws, or we're talking about natural law. We're talking about natural law, and we're talking about higher law, and we're talking about metaphysical law. We're talking about principles. What is it that you need to learn? What mistakes did you make that you, or maybe that you perceived you made that led you to the current position that you're in? Why were you on that path? What are your intentions? Because we spoke about intentions with shamans in manipulating, right? But what are your intentions in regards to your healing? Were they honorable in the first place? Were they coming from a space of not maybe, okay, let's say there can be kinds of attraction, okay, to shamanistic people, or even movie stars, or anybody for that matter, of a kind of infatuation, and I'm not necessarily talking about romantic or sexual or anything, but infatuation, being taken up, feeling that you want to connect that with that person. Or it could be romantic, or it could be, and a lot of times shamans go through that. Why do they go through that? Masters go through that. Shamans go through that all the time on the sexual level of people being attracted because the shaman has his primal energy, his Shakti energy, his Shakti Shiva energy, his Kundalini energy is raging. It's raging all the time. It's in play. The serpent energy, the Kundalini energy is in play all the time, and it's radiating. And it's like people can be attracted to that as well. And they may not even know it, but it's on a primal level. It's on a primal level. And that might be I'm just pointing out that might be an attraction as well, which is fine too. There's nothing taboo. There's nothing good or evil about sex or the primal energy or any of that thing. But you have to know your intention when going in. Is it just for the primal energy? Is it, or is it for a healing that primal energy exudes or radiates out? It's not all fun and games, all right? When you hook up with somebody that comes from a high spiritual level. It's a healing process, one that's not understood easily. Sometimes, shamans channel and they're connected with spirit, and they don't know till later. It might be revealed to them. Spirit will talk to them and say, yeah, this was for a specific reason, and this is why this is happening. And believe me, it's always a learning lesson. It's a healing, on a sense, for the shaman as well as the student, but the healing level for the shaman is on a much higher level. It's transcending, let's say, boundaries that needed to be broken. While the student may be experiencing it on this lower realm, or this lower dimension, or the third dimension, or the mundane level, as some sort of drama or some sort of event. But it's all for a healing. And if you relate this, let's say again, to the tarot cards, I've been kind of having another look at tarot. Lately, I've been involved with looking at it for years as a meditation device, and I'm kind of renewing a little bit of that. I'm actually designing my own deck called the Yantra Tarot, which combines the images of yantras, which is an ancient symbol representing the different goddesses and gods, where you can go direct. Combining that with the typical tarot or the Rider-Waite deck. I might put one on as a thumbnail on this video, depending. I might put the star card or something that I designed on there so you can get kind of it. But I'm going to be doing a whole different video on that. But in relation to, let's say, the tarot, you know, when you dive into the deep subconscious mind, that's called shadow work. It's called shadow work, and on the subconscious level, you got all kinds of devils and demons and taboos and things that you were indoctrinated with, that ideas and belief systems that were taboo, or certain things that you should act out or not act out, or like, let's say, sexual repression or anything of that nature. Repressed, all of a sudden, you know, when you dive into the do a deep dive into the subconscious, you actively participate in delving into the dark. And in the tarot card, that is represented by the devil. The devil, see, these cards that people think are bad, oh, the Tower card's bad and the Devil card's bad and all that stuff, aren't bad at all. In fact, they're damn good. Because they, you know, you dive in and then repression is released, and you know, you dive in again and more repression is released and more things come up. And that's another thing that can happen when a student comes in contact with a shaman, is that all kinds of repressed emotions, dark side stuff, personas and egos and attitudes and desires and all this dark side stuff could just explode into your life. And how does it explode? Well, it explodes on a physical level sometimes. It manifests in the world around you, in events around you, in things that happen to you. Some could even be life-threatening. Boy, is it scary. But you have to let go of all preconceived conceptions, all rules, all regulations, all things having to do with blame, all things having to do with some type of morality, all things. It's totally all fucking blown away. It's meaningless. The only thing that has meaning at this point is the lesson and the healing and the principle, the higher principle that's involved. And it has to do with intention, what your original intention might have been. Doesn't matter what that is. And do you try to manipulate? And when, let's say, when you manipulate, is that manipulation for the good of the person involved? What's your intention with that? Is it to have control? Is it to have control over? Is it to make a person misery loves company? And if I'm in this certain state of mind, I'm going to make them there too, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Is that intention for the person's higher good? Is it? You can be sure that a healer and a shaman is always focused on an outcome that is good for that person. And really, the shaman is no other than that person themselves projecting it out for something that they have to learn. Shamans have their shamans that they go to. Medicine men have their medicine men, only they don't appear on earth. It's a higher medicine man. It's a higher shaman. It's a higher portion of themselves that they've learned to take into account and get lessons from. They have their lessons too. They have their lessons too. But they were on at such a high frequency that they see things for what they are. Anytime that you have fear or worry, okay, when you're going through a lesson, anytime that you have fear or worry arise, so you get panicky, that's emotions from the deep, dark subconscious, the devil card in the tarot. It's basically stirring up the pot here. It's stirring it up, and it explodes, And so when that happens, if you're doing shadow work, if you're really on it, if you're really fucking on it, you imagine the temperance card, and the temperance card is the angel that is pouring water from one cup to another cup. Only it's not overhead. It's not like directly below. It's magical. Okay, it's kind of magical because the water is just going from cup to cup. All right. And basically, it represents control of the subconscious or the water or the explosion. The explosion that comes from your deep dive into your shadow self and is exhibiting itself, wants to exhibit itself as the Tower card that's just all blown to bits. And that's what's happening with that. You have to use temperance, you have to use a regulator in the sense of you can't just let everything get out of hand here. It's a lesson there too. So anyway, I thought I would touch on these things. They're important things. Sometimes events happen around us. They're important things that need to be touched on. And they may be for me, or they may be for a specific person, or they may be for... Usually something that is for a specific person includes all people. Because a lot of people are going through the same thing in their life, okay? And especially in this time that we're living in. Because all kinds of shit storms are going to be coming up on some level here. Now, everything that I'm describing here, you might recognize in your life on different levels, just coming into contact with different people, or there's always healings between, two individuals in families, or relationships or friendships or something like this. So if you can understand, okay, some of this stuff, how things are healed, how awakenings happen from the subconscious to the conscious, a bubbling up of lessons, and then it manifesting in your physical life as well, you can learn from that. You can learn from this video. So anyway, yeah, that's my video for today. I thought I would touch on those things and take it for what it's worth. But just remember, things aren't as they appear to be with spiritual masters and teachers and shamans and that type of thing. There are no rules. There are no regulations. There is no right or wrong. There is no black and white. It's way beyond. It's out in the field somewhere. So anyway, I guess I'll leave it there. I'm going to put a link to my new site. I have a Yantra Tarot site where you can look at some of the cards I'm designing. They're not for sale or anything. You just enjoy what's on the site that I'm putting up there. And also, you know, there is a section on there for donations for this channel. In fact, at Spirit of Crazy Horse too, which will be in the show notes. But you can also get I can do a deep dive into the tarot. I can do a reading for you and see what comes up on a donation level too as well, if you're into that kind of thing. So anyway, I'll leave it there. A little hiatus there, but it's good to be back. So until I see you again, this is Thunder saying adios.